Life in letters.
My Life in Letters. Let's do this. We are excited to announce our new sponsorship with sprayplanet.com. You guys know the deal. This is where you go online to order the finest in MTN products. If you are in the US, this is where you should be buying your goods. At the end of our episode, check it. We'll give you a link so you can get 10% off your order next time you go. But without further ado, let's get into this episode. My Life in Letters. We are back again and on the phone today from Boston, Mass. I'm super excited to have her on. This episode, I was telling her before we started, it's a bit of a departure from a lot of the other episodes because she's not a graffiti artist, but she is a letter enthusiast. She calls herself a letter artist. Annica Leidenberg from Dirty Bandits, which is her design studio. Annica, thank you for being on the show today. It's so great.
Thanks so much for having me, Adam. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and taking the time out while you're up there in Boston, I really appreciate, because I know that you're always on the go. You're ever working, and it's one of the things that I think draws people to you, and it makes your work. It's fun to go to your site and your Instagram page because we always get new stuff, and we'll get into a lot of that soon. But again, we're just honored to have you here, and so thanks again.
Thank you. My mom actually said that she started following me on Instagram just so that she would know where I was.
Does she use a name like Mom Bandits or anything that's just like real? My mom uses her full name, and I'm like, Ma, I really want her to change her Instagram name because I would be happy to interact more, but she really says stuff like, "That's my boy" on posts, and I'm just kind of like, oh man, it's just like, okay, Mom, I love you. But that's funny that's how she follows you. I think that's actually kind of common nowadays, right? Like our parents are on our social media platforms to know what we're up to.
Yeah.
And you're all over the place. You're always doing stuff. And, while we want to spend as much time digging into your current work, what I like to do on My Life in Letters is to go back into and we're not putting you on the My Life in Letters couch, but we do try to go back to your childhood a little bit so we can maybe discover what it was that got you excited about lettering early on. Now I know from some research that we've done that sign painting came to you late, but what I don't know is if you have always been someone that's into lettering. And so one of the questions that I ask my guests is if you can recall an experience or a time in your childhood when letter had some sort of an impact on you, where you had this understanding that there was like a power to it and that there was some sort of like utility to the letter. Do you have an experience or a story you could tell?
It's funny. I actually found something. My parents moved maybe about 10 years ago. And, there's a box of my old schoolwork and artwork that was in the basement at their last apartment. And I was going through it to see what was in there. And I found a project I had done in 6th grade that had the most elaborate title treatment to it, where I had done every single word in a different style. And I had no memory of even creating anything like that back then, but it was definitely happening.
That's really cool. What was it? What was the project?
So I had this amazing social studies teacher in 6th grade, and we did different units on different I wanted to say the histories of different countries, and it was a scroll about Ulysses.
Wow. Cool.
It was pretty great. But then, for me, in terms of my earliest memory of wanting to make signs and stuff, my first job in Boston was working at a bakery right around the corner from my parents' place. And I worked retail, and all I ever wanted to do was either help shape the bread loaves, because that was way more fun for me, or make signs for their windows for any upcoming holidays, or make signs for the specials for different breads that they were doing. I was always begging. I would come in and say, do you need any signs today? And it was just a fun thing for me to do in between customers. And many, many years later, that bakery was a huge part of my life for, all the way through college. If I ever came back through Boston to see my folks, I would always go pick up shifts there. And they've been so supportive in everything that I've done that years later, when I got into sign painting, they were actually my first sign painting commission, where they said, so since this is what you're doing now, how about you do actual signs for our windows? So I did all different bread related puns, and I did, you work in a bakery, and I'm sure they get lots of requests now for gluten-free bread. And so I did a sign that said, save the gluten. And I did another one that said, if you can't stand the wheat, get out of the kitchen.
Good one. Nice.
And then my favorite was, what you see is what you baguette.
The puns don't stop. And actually that's something, puns are they're a big part of your work, and I think it's one of the things that makes it so approachable. And to go back, I didn't ask you, were you born and raised in Boston proper?
Yeah, I grew up in Brookline, and I was right between BU and BC. My mother teaches at Boston College. So we lived right there. And
then did you say that you went to college in Boston as well?
No, I actually went to college in upstate New York. I went to Skidmore.
Oh, you wouldn't get free tuition at BC?
I would have, and I firmly thought that was where I was headed. But by then I was so serious about wanting to do art and study art, and that just wasn't something that I could do there. Okay.
But so through your childhood in Massachusetts, and you mentioned this 6th grade project. Were you also a kid who was into writing?
I think when I was pretty young, I was obviously obsessed with the comics section of the newspaper. That was the only part that I wanted. And not only did I really like the illustrations, but I loved all of the hand-drawn type in it. And I loved the different styles from one comic strip to the next. So I definitely spent a lot of time trying to emulate that, for sure. Garfield played pretty large part in my 5th grade life, and I would practice drawing Odie and Garfield all the time. But then I would actually practice drawing letters that looked like his letters too.
Jim Davis letters.
Yeah. That circle over the eye.
Sure. Yeah, totally. I think it's been widely kind of copied. And okay. And so like newspaper funnies had influence on you.
Definitely.
And then you said you went to art school in upstate New York, right? Or you were an art major in college?
Yeah, I was an art major.
Was it fine art?
Yeah, it was. It was. So I did, they only had 4 graphic design classes. And then I did sculpture, I did printmaking, I did a lot of drawing classes. I really liked my drawing classes.
And were you, like all throughout your life, were you just an artistic kid beyond like, recreating Garfield drawings? Did you start developing your own style throughout your childhood and adolescence?
Oh, for sure. I also was I was very self-conscious about it though. So it wasn't something I really liked to do very publicly. I was a quiet kid. I was an only child, and I definitely spent a lot of time, by myself drawing and really enjoying that, but also always very acutely aware of how amateur I was and being embarrassed by that.
But you got yourself together to put a portfolio together after high school, and you got accepted. Yeah. And so at Skidmore, you got was it a BFA?
No, it's actually a BS. Which
Bachelor of Science
sense.
In what? What was the science? The science of
studio art.
Nice.
For some reason, that's how they did it.
Okay. And so you have this BS in studio art. What year did you graduate college?
2000.
And so then in 2000, what do you think you're going to do? Were you going to go into the world and create your own studio and make your own work as an artist? Like, what was your direction at that time? That
couldn't have been further from my intention. I was always someone who really liked being told what to do, being able to do a good job, and like just being done with it. So I didn't even own a computer when I graduated college, and I got a job as a graphic designer. And people were really still just hiring for web back then. So
Right.
my first job, I was working entirely in Flash, which I had never used before. So I bought a book that I read. Had never even opened the program before my first day of work.
Wow. And you got hired as a Flash designer, but you hadn't done any
Yeah.
Flash work. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Interesting.
It was a giant stroke of luck. I had an internship the year before for a company that had been doing a website for the WCW Mayhem video game.
Okay.
So I had extensive knowledge of WCW figures. And so then this first job, they had a WCW account that they were hiring for. And they were like, wait, you know who Sting is and who Goldberg is? I was like, oh, sure. And Ric Flair. And they said, oh, great, you're hired. I was like, okay.
And
so
isn't the WWE in New England somewhere? I feel like I've seen like off the 95, like the building with this huge flag waving.
I would totally believe you, but I'm going to say that my the amount of attention I was paying to wrestling pretty much took a sharp decline after I left that job.
So how long did you work for that company doing Flash design?
So I was there for about a year and a half, and then, everyone was being laid off in 2001 and no one was really hiring. So I had a moment of panic that perhaps I needed something else to do with my life. Wasn't sure really where I was going. So I took a little time and I actually went down to Australia because I just needed to get away and get out of New York. And I started working for a production company that did flyers for local clubs and events and stuff like that. And that to me in 2001, 2002 was like the dream. Yeah, I guess it was 2002. It was like the dream job. And I could use all of these totally awful techno inspired fonts for all of these flyers with lots of radial blurs and all sorts of disgusting things. So I was in absolute heaven then. Lots of bevel and emboss going on.
And what took you to Australia? Like, I mean, you just want to get as far as humanly possible as you could from New England, or what was it?
Yes.
Go to the sun, go to the warmth, total change of pace.
I'm not good at winter, so I knew I needed to leave. So everything about that was really appealing. It was someplace where I could pretty easily get a 4-month temporary visa that allowed me to work while I was there. So that was my first trip down, and I made a lot of friends and had this job working off the books. And so I could go back again on a tourist visa. So I did. I spent the following 2 winters after that also in Australia. My trips just got longer and longer. And then when I came back again, I was applying for full-time jobs. I never intended I didn't want to be my own boss at 25. I didn't have that kind of, I often knew what the right business move was. I didn't have the self-confidence to make it. So,
and like you had said, you kind of liked being told what to do and then being praised for it, and you didn't necessarily need to be calling all the shots. Getting into, we'll get deeper into how you run your studio later, because I think I'm always fascinated with anybody that can run a design studio on their own. And so, but at that time in 2002, that was not on your radar. You weren't thinking about being your own boss at all. But
no, it happened because it had to happen. It didn't happen because that was what I set out for. And then at some point I just became unwilling to, the idea of going back to working for someone else and working full time and not being able to travel as much, that then all of a sudden seemed like, why would I do that?
Right. Yeah, sure. I mean, the autonomy of doing your own thing is, I think, attractive to so many people. Yet I think it's really hard to maintain. So 2002, you were still down there, and something you said was interesting to me, that you were doing all of this like bevel and emboss stuff, right? All this type work. But what I'm really interested in is like, even so, you have a bachelor in science from Skidmore. Did that make you feel confident as a typographer yet? Or when you went to
No.
Australia? Okay, so you go to Australia and it's like this jump. And actually, I have like, I was really fortunate in grad school. I think I mentioned this to you when we met for coffee, that I got to study under Benjamin Critton, and he taught us a lot. And he's this, for those listening, he's this kind of very famous typographer. There's this great quote from Nita Stossinger. I'm not sure if you know of her, but she says that the first time I drew type, I felt like I was at the bottom of Mount Everest in a swimsuit. And that was like completely me when I first started trying to play with type. And I had thought, listen, I got 20 plus years as a graffiti artist. Graphic design, the class was called mark making. I was like, I'm a pro at making marks, and like one of the very first things we had to do was just to design like a very simple logo for ourselves, right? And it was just like, it was I had to just slog through weeks and weeks. I didn't realize we were going to spend 4 weeks working on a logo. But we did, and I learned a ton, and mainly what I learned was that I absolutely knew jack shit about type and about how to form type and the background behind it. So I'm curious, what were some of your challenges down in Australia making these flyers and doing all this bevel and emboss work? Can you remember?
Oh, everyone would have been appalled by what I was doing. It was just terrible design. I don't feel like, I properly learned typography until I did the Type at Cooper program, which wasn't until 2010 when that started.
You graduated
I graduated in 2011.
Okay. And so between 2002 and 2010, were you just kind of bumbling through it all the time?
Yeah, I'd say so. I did a lot of, I didn't do a ton of typography based work. It wasn't till, I guess, 2008 was the first time I did my first real hand lettering project, where I said, this is something that's important to me. I want to explore this. I'm not good at this yet. I need to practice.
Sorry, that was 2008, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been doing a calendar of silly holidays every year since 2008. And that was my first project that I did that was hand lettering. So I think up until then, I did a lot of design work that was okay. It wasn't terrible. But I always knew that there was something missing from it. I knew there was something sort of lacking. And I think I was really timid with it. I think I was just too timid. I was too timid to practice. I was too timid to share what I was doing. And it wasn't until I did the Type at Cooper program that the speed at which I was learning about typography just went through the roof.
I bet. Yeah.
What I learned during that time was absolutely mind blowing. Like even the most basic things of looking at, 50, 100 different typefaces and seeing where the weight falls in each of the letters. That was huge. It never occurred to me why sometimes my uppercase A looked awkward and sometimes it looked good. And it was because I didn't know which side the weight was supposed to fall on.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I wasn't even aware of that as a thing to pay attention to.
Sure. And I was in a similar place where I just hadn't realized how much thought could go into a stroke of one letter, and certainly hadn't thought about kerning and leading yet at all, which, that was really hammered into our heads about how critical spacing really is for type. It's a given when you think about it, but if you haven't thought about it, it's like it kind of comes out of left field. And before we get to Type at Cooper, because I'm really interested in your experience there, 2002 to 2008, can you just kind of walk us through maybe some, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like some highlights of those years? Because how long did you stay in Australia starting in 2002? You said 2 other winters.
Yeah, I was back in 2004, pretty early on in 2004. And I actually I did do a couple of really exciting and wonderful web projects during that time. I was doing a lot of web work when I got back. I was still working in Flash. And I actually had the incredible fortune of meeting Futura. And I didn't even know that I had met him. I had a friend who used to have a little chowder bar on North 7th Street that he opened in maybe 2001 in Williamsburg.
What was it called? What?
It was called Hurricane Hopeful. he had a lot of, this was my buddy Ben from college, and he had a lot of big ideas. Like he wanted to cover the windows in newspapers so no one would know that it was there. He wanted like a secret underground spot. So maybe, I don't know.
Man,
maybe
he did it. He accomplished it. God. Okay.
So I would spend a lot of time when I came back from Australia in like 2000. Well, yeah, in between my trips, I would spend a lot of time hanging out with Ben at his shop. And there was this guy, Lenny, that came in, and Lenny was super nice. And we would always hang out outside and chat. And one day Ben said to me after he left, he said, do you know who that is? And I was like, who? Lenny? And he said, yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, that's Futura.
Wow.
I was like, oh, seriously?
And was Futura on your radar as an artist?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So that blew my mind. And he was obviously just so incredibly kind. And I happened to be in Australia. I guess I met him in between my trips back and forth. And on my last trip back to Australia, he was coming out for like a art show and to speak. And a friend of mine in Australia was helping to organize it. And so I actually was at his studio one day when Lenny called, and I jumped on the phone with him. And he, of course, was like, do you need anything? How are you doing out there? I was like, I'm cool.
Nice.
And he said, okay, so let me know when you're back.
And you know, it's really interesting too. Like, I feel like you've had some sort of a charmed life where you just seem to rub elbows with a lot of graffiti artists. Like, I know that you're friends with Bisco and you're friends with Bishop. It's interesting. Like, can you equate anything to that? Like how you just have had a chance to just bump into people like Futura and just know these kind of prolific graffiti artists?
I mean, there's nothing to say besides, a nice person to chat with and to hang out with. It's a nice person to chat with and to hang out with.
Okay, good.
So many times, I mean, these are genuinely enjoyable human beings that, what they do on the street, on the wall, all of this outside of what I know of them, is almost, I don't know, it almost didn't factor in, like that doesn't factor in first.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So when I got back to New York and I needed some sort of work, I obviously ran into Lenny at Ben's Chowder Bar. And I was doing a lot of flash at the time, and he had just opened his store in, I want to say in Fukuoka, Japan.
Okay.
And he said, well, I want to do a crazy website. And he just gave me like, I don't know, 4 or 5 DVDs full of Illustrator files, like maybe 1,000 Illustrator files, all of these great things that he had done. Some of them had been turned into stickers. Some had been turned into t-shirt graphics or patterns or whatever it is. And the name of the game was just make something really weird. Wow. And I don't know if you remember what the original Futura 2000 website was, but it was just this like endless. You clicked, there was no navigation, there was no portfolio. You just clicked and got crazy, flashy, weird GIFs and photos. And like, you had no idea what sort of weird web you had just entered. So the idea was to create something flash that was like this. So I animated like crazy. And we made this super elaborate Futura laboratory site. That had hidden photos. It had hidden like all sorts of different entire portals. There were games that I had built that were in there. And I worked on that thing for months and months. And I would just come in and I would sit with my laptop at the end of his like Lego desk that he had built. And I just listened to him, like, people would come in to visit him. He was working on new graphics. It was really amazing to see a working artist really doing it. And I don't know. And that space was just so friendly and so much fun. So that for me was just the hugest, most epic highlight.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, what year was all that going down, all that work?
That was probably about 2004. I think that was like summer of 2004 is when I was working on
People
that.
listening I'm drooling at the idea of many DVDs with thousands of Illustrator files by Futura. That must have just been, also, it must have been overwhelming to look at that much content and to be able to try to figure out some sort of a path to navigate.
It was terrifying.
How did you decide where to even start when looking at thousands of files?
I mean, part of it was just seeing what spoke to me in terms of what things I wanted to break apart and animate.
Okay.
That was part of it. And then I loved the sort of, I mean, I've always been someone who loves games and puzzles. So using those graphics to create these different really weird games and puzzles was really fun. And despite having always been an artist, math has always come very easily to me. And there was a lot about programming language that I really geeked out on and that I really, really liked. And when I would get stuck, I had a few friends that were just really amazing programmers and developers. And it was the only education that I got. I would, rather than pay them to build the certain modules that I wanted built or whatever it was, I would pay them their same hourly rate to sit next to me and tell me how to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the entrepreneur. That's the woman about to run her own design studio in you, I guess, so that's really smart.
So that was how I learned everything that I learned in Flash. I never took a class or anything. And there were a lot of open source things back then where you could download, if there was a little like memory game or something, I could download it. I could, copy paste that code and turn it into something different and then make this really cool like memory matching game for Futura's site that if you got all of the things and you went on to a new level.
Wow. And I don't know how Flash kind of builds out, but can you talk about like how sort of vast the code was by the time you got to the end?
I was doing a lot of really heavy action scripting, and it was really fun to try and figure out how many things I could do just by writing lines of code and not actually doing any animation, like to direct all the animation with code. But man, Flash died hard and fast.
Yeah, it really did.
And honestly, I was happy to see it go by then. I was done. I was tired of being hired to update. So part of the problem was, you do this Flash website for someone, and then every time they wanted an update, if they were a business, every time they wanted an update, they'd come back to you. So during that time, I was running more of a design studio, and I had people that were working for me, and I did a lot of, animated banner ads, and things like that. And just the constant stream of updates was keeping me from being able to do anything new creatively. And it took me a long time to figure that out, that it was like, I was just going to have to find something else to do.
Sure.
And I remember the first book that I did after having been doing websites forever, that was amazing. You send that thing to print and it never comes back. Like you're done.
Right.
And then you get an actual physical book in your hand, which was a whole different ballgame for me.
And I was actually wondering, with all that time working in Flash and sitting in front of a computer and coding, even as much as you enjoyed it, I wonder if you were missing that tangibility that you had in college, sculpting or painting, or were you always trying to keep a balance? Were you working on private projects at the same time?
I really didn't have time to. Running the business was so difficult and so time consuming. And honestly, if I got extra time, I sort of wanted to use it to do actual design work, because running the business was so much, writing proposals, doing updates. Like it wasn't what I wanted it to be to begin with. So I really felt like my design skills were not moving forward as much as they could be. And in terms of creating personal work and drawing and doing things off the computer, I was doing virtually nothing. Actually, I was doing some screen printing during that time, but that was my only real outlet.
But were you feeling pretty passionate about the work that you were doing?
Certain projects, absolutely.
I'm sure working with Futura must have been really inspiring. I'm curious if there's any if there's like an anecdote or some kind of a Futura story you can give us about working together or being able to. What was a Lego desk, by the way? I don't know about this. Did he literally have a desk made of Legos?
He was always building things. I'm not sure how long this phase was for him and if this continues, but he was always building amazing things with Legos. So he'd been working on a huge desk, and he built the sides of it were all Legos, and then it had a glass top. So he was definitely working on that for a while.
That's awesome.
I do remember he gave me a pair of limited edition Nikes. I don't think he had a lot of friends that were like a men's size 5. So,
okay.
When he would get this huge, he'd get his like shipment in of like, hey, here are the ones for you to give out to your friends. Yeah. Like that one was like not so coveted after the size 5.
Sure.
So he gave me a pair of those and I loved them. They were like, army green and mustard and like this black suede, and they were Dunks, and I was wearing them in one day, and one of his friends looks at me and he like looks at the shoes and his eyes pop out of his head and he was like, yo, that shit's not for every day. Oh. And I was like so embarrassed. I was like, did I do it wrong? Like, they're shoes. I want to wear them on my feet. Like, I don't have a lot of shoes. I'm like 25. I really I need to wear the shoes that I have. So
that's so good.
Yeah, I remember he was always very generous with me and always giving me whatever samples were lying around, especially if it was something that I, complimented.
And are there any other maybe philosophies within his work ethic or his studio that you think you carry with you today and are implemented at Dirty Bandits?
I mean, he was so chill and so open. And I think that was really, and he was so hands off with me, which was really incredible.
I mean, yeah, the fact that he just gave you all those DVDs is really incredible to me. The level of trust that he took to just give you thousands of files, Yeah. Because those are worth so much money to certain people. One raw Illustrator file from Futura could be, really valuable. So that's interesting.
Yeah, no, I think that he was so hands off, and that he just said, just see what you can do, just, and that level, to have someone place that level of trust in you, it was very, I mean, I'm someone who always brings my A game anyway, but my God, I just wanted to do right by him. I just wanted him to be proud of what I was creating for him because it was his work.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did he say when you, let's say the 10 months or however many months you worked on it, were up? What was his takeaway? What were his thoughts?
I'm hoping I don't regret saying this on a podcast, but
I can edit it.
I would occasionally smoke weed while I was there. And I remember one day he said to me, he gave me a compliment. He was really happy with the way one section had just come together. And he said, I was getting a little nervous there. And I thought, is it too much weed? Should I not be getting her high? No. And I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. But yes, so I think that the day he told me he was relieved that I was really pulling it together was a good day.
And so then what happened to that portion of the site, or was it its own site? Did it have what was the URL back then? Do you remember?
It was futuralaboratories.com.
Okay. And so that was around, you said that was around 2004 that all that was happening. Yeah. And you had also mentioned that by 2008, what was it? What was going on in 2008 that I wrote down here? Hold on.
Oh, I did my first calendar.
That's right. And so what was sort of like the transition? Well, Flash dies, right? Yes. Also, could you see any writing on the wall of that? Did you have a feeling that Flash was going to become obsolete, or was it a total shock that one day it was just like, nope, we're not doing this?
I think I was surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was surprised. I don't think I saw that coming, but it was just as everyone started getting new devices that couldn't support Flash.
Yeah. All the Apple devices that were not doing it. And so then what was the sort of, what was your thinking when Flash went away, seeing how it sounds like it was kind of your bread and butter at the time. What was your thought for a pivot?
I mean, it was a huge relief. It was like it was a really great opportunity to move on to something different. I think back then I'd been so overwhelmed with running the business. I'd started working with a business coach, and she had me do the most incredible thing, where I made an Excel spreadsheet of all of my clients, and I did 5 columns across the top.
Mm-hmm.
There was portfolio, there was payment, there was what industry were they in, do I like them as human beings, and is there some sort of social responsible component to either their business or their industry.
Right.
And then I ranked them on each of these 5 things, or I rated them for each of the 5 categories. And then I added up the total at the end. And she had me reorganize the spreadsheet from highest ranking to lowest. And I got rid of everyone under a certain point. I just said, these aren't clients that I should be working with anymore.
That's awesome.
And that freed me up hugely. And I really needed, like I said, I really sort of have always enjoyed mathematics, and I like loved being able to quantify it and being like, you know what? Doesn't matter that I really like that person. This isn't good work for my portfolio. I don't want more clients that are in the same industry as them. And, you know, they expect me to do this work for half of what I should be charging.
Right. So I'm also curious, like, of those 5 categories, was one more important than another, like social responsibility versus, you know, pay grade, or whether you like them? Can you tell us about kind of what was at the highest end?
Sure. So, money got a number from 0 to 5, 5 being best paid. Portfolio got a number from 0 to 5, and the other categories were just 0 to 2. I
see. Okay. So it was like get paid, obviously, and then how does it look on
create
my portfolio?
Work. Create work that I'm proud of.
And, you know, the reason I ask is because so much of your work now has a social angle to it, and I really appreciate it so much, because I mean, I will put it on record how depressed I am with how socially lackadaisical most artists are. And I feel like now more than ever, it's not just like an option. It's like, and it's beyond our responsibility as artists to push back and to question things and to challenge. It's crucial. We're living in a crucial time where we need to push back, and I don't see enough of it. So I thank you for the amount of social good that I think your work does.
Yeah, I was raised to do something. I was raised to do something with more of a social component, for sure.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Yeah. Can you talk about your parents?
Yeah. So my father works in the field of socially responsible investment research, and has since I was about 10 years old. And even before then, you know, the things that I remember from growing up were, you know, I only saw my parents spend money on 2 things. It was artwork from their friends. They definitely were very supportive of their friends that were artists. And it was healthy food from local sources. And those were the 2 things that I saw them spend money on. So I definitely think that influenced a lot of sort of how I conduct myself to this day. Sure, you know, I definitely see the importance of supporting local businesses, supporting local artists, and like, you know, I will always buy things from my friends and stuff like that. But more than that, my dad worked for, when I was really little, he worked for a organization down in New York called the Council of Economic Priorities. And they would help create they created a like supermarket shopping guide where you could see different brands, who they were owned by, and what that company did in terms of like community giving. I remember, you know, like obviously back then there were different like major issues, but everyone was ranked, and you could see if they got like a check or if they got fantastic. An X next to each thing. So of course my poor mother would come back from the supermarket and like sometimes like things had been purchased that were. Oh
no! And your dad would be like, "How could you buy that can of beans? Didn't you look?" No,
it was just known.
Okay.
So I think that they always instilled in me a need to be aware,
Hmm.
that ignorance was not an excuse or an option.
That company
I
sounds,
need
or
to,
that organization sounded pretty progressive. When did he start working for them?
yeah. So he was definitely one of the pioneers in the field of socially responsible investment research,
Mm.
and started a research company, I guess, in about 1990.
Hmm. Yeah.
That was based in Boston. And then eventually there was a mutual fund that still exists called Domini Social Investments that was originally based off of the research that he was doing.
Mm.
And he still works for that company now.
Oh, fantastic! So they're still around. I mean,
Yeah.
more, and again, like probably needed more now than ever. And did we talk about grabyourwallet.com when we had coffee?
No,
Are you familiar? It's like this.
no.
It's an incredible site that this woman started. I'm going to just botch it all, but basically,
Oh,
she created this. It's basically
yes.
a big sheet, a big list
Yes,
of
I did see this.
yeah, like I think she started it to show people where Ivanka Trump's products were so you could boycott those stores, and then it's
Yeah.
just grown. It's become this massive catalog of basically companies that aren't ethically responsible, where they produce, how they
Right.
produce, how little they pay their farmers, etc. It's a really
Yeah.
it's a great site, and I'm glad to be able to plug it right now. But it sounds like your dad was way way ahead of the curve with that, and so that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that must have I mean, clearly it had a long-standing effect on you, which is interesting. I want to go back to Future a little bit, because what it sounds like is that there was a lot of influence there as well. So you finished working with Futura in 2004. Did you ever get a chance to do any other design work with him?
No, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Just that site.
And at this point, again, between 2004 and 2008, when you made your first calendar, were there, and we talked about how Flash died out, were there some other things that happened that led you towards wanting to make letters with your hands, like doing hand-drawn lettering?
I mean, I think around that same time, I started going to a lot of shows at the Deitch Project, back when that was around in Lower Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
And I, became familiar with the work of Steve Powers, of Barry McGee, Margaret Kilgallen. So I was definitely starting to see a lot more text in art, which was really exciting. But I still don't think that my intention was to leave the world of graphic design and migrate at all into working as an artist until, another almost 10 years after that.
Okay.
But to be seeing that stuff around was really great.
And so what was the impulse in 2008 to do the calendar? Also, I got to tell you this great quote that just came into my head from Mark Simonson. He's a really killer graphic designer, and he has this quote where he says that lettering is like clay and type is like Lego. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but I think it ties in kind of interestingly to the Lego desk thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really love that quote. So what led you to this lettering and doing the Silly Calendars project?
Silly
I guess Holidays project.
I had just started to see, to take note in more and more lettering that was around hand lettering. It certainly wasn't as prevalent then as it is now. But I was always, I would always gravitate towards those projects over things that were just done on the computer. In part, I felt like I certainly couldn't draw type well on the computer, and to see something done by hand, to me, it was like a little bit more ballsy, like this wasn't just a smart selection and a smart layout. Like it just had this other level to it. So I was really sick of the computer and was looking for an excuse to get off of it, really, when every chance that I got. So starting to do more hand lettering with my design project seemed like the best, way to get into that. And around 2008, also, my business changed a great deal. I know you mentioned Bisco earlier. He had been working with me for about 3 years. Just a couple days a week while he was making music and doing art the other days. And then we had a junior designer that was also a couple days a week. And we usually had one intern as well. And it was like serendipitously, everyone was leaving at the same time. And I just decided I'm not going to replace anyone. I don't want to be responsible for coming up with enough work to pay anyone but myself. I sent off really nice packages to all of my existing clients being like, here are all of your web design files. Here are all of your original design files. Here's the name of 2 or 3 other people that I'm sure you could reach out to.
Right.
I'm no longer doing this. So I wrote a breakup letter to HTML that I posted as my website for a little while.
Oh, that sounds so good.
And then, as my overhead dropped dramatically, it gave me the chance to actually start to pursue some personal projects. So,
also, I'm sorry, when you were working with Bisco and your other designer, were you under the sort of umbrella of Dirty Bandits yet?
Oh, yeah. Dirty Bandits.
What year was that started then?
So Dirty Bandits actually started as a t-shirt label when I was living in Australia in 2003.
Oh, it goes that far back. And then can you just tell us a little bit about the formation of that name? Like, where did it come from and why does it resonate with you?
So my roommate at the time and I in Australia, she did a lot of like really fantastic sewing work. And she worked in like fashion retail. And I wanted to do graphic design, like more personal stuff and the kind of graphics that I wanted to do and not necessarily like working with someone else's assets that already existed. So we started screen printing t-shirts in our backyard and selling them at the markets on the weekend. And that started going really well. So then we got a few stores in Sydney and in Melbourne that were selling our things. And then I brought back samples one summer and I think we had like 1 store in San Francisco, 2 in LA. And we started selling at 555 Soul in New York. Nice. Which was super exciting.
Yeah, it was such a cool brand at the time. Rest in pease. Actually, I don't know. Are they still around? Is 555 Soul around?
No, they are gone.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
They are sadly gone.
Yeah.
But I had to incorporate in the States in order to start selling here. And then when I stopped, at some point I made a spreadsheet that showed us exactly how many t-shirts we'd have to sell and make in order to, cover our costs and pay ourselves anything. And it was clear that was never going to happen. So we just immediately killed it. It had been probably maybe a year and a half, I think, that we were doing it. So, and I feel like back then, all graphic designers, it was like a rite of passage. You had a t-shirt label and then maybe you had a magazine. I skipped the magazine thing, but you started with music related flyers. That was like a given. And then you went into the t-shirt label, then the magazine, and then you had the design firm. That was just like what people did.
Interesting. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people accidentally follow that exact same sort of path. So Dirty Bandits already existed when I came back, and I asked her, do you mind if I just keep using this name since we already paid to set up this entity? And she said, sure. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not going to use it for anything.
So she's not a part of Dirty Bandits in any way anymore. You guys are still friends though, I presume?
No, not since, I don't know, 2004 maybe, I think is when we stopped doing the t-shirts. And back then, yeah, I don't know. And then we had sort of lost touch for a while, and I saw her in Sydney maybe 3 years ago. And she said to me, wait, you're still using that name?
Nice. Yeah.
She was so shocked and confused. She was like, wow, can't quite believe that.
And so how did you come up with the name?
Oh, so the name was, back then my style was very dirty and grungy. So that was and I was really dedicated to that. So that was the dirty part of it. And Bandits was from a Pablo Picasso quote, which is good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Sure. Okay.
So that was where the Bandits came from.
That's awesome. Okay.
Thanks.
And it has persisted. And have you gotten any pushback on it? Have people been like, I don't know, Annica, that's not really like you or anything like that?
I think my favorite. No, I haven't had anyone tell me that it's stupid, despite the fact that they could. But I think my favorite thing was actually meeting when I first met my buddy Paul, who back then had a t-shirt label that also sold at 555 Soul called Future Relic. And the first time he met me, he just does a double take and he goes, "Wait, Dirty Bandits is a girl?"
Yeah.
And
sure
that
that
sort of made me
happens.
happy. I felt like I had done something right. I was like, yeah, I slipped in under the radar without anyone realizing.
Nice. Okay. And so, for the sake of time, I know in 2008 you make this calendar. Also, I just know because you've told me, and actually I think I heard it on another interview, that you started to pitch, or you started to send these calendars to lots of different clients that you already had and prospective clients, including BNA. And I wonder, or Bernstein, and then is it Andreuli?
Yeah.
Bernstein and Andreoli, which is the creative media management agency that you are repped by. When you first started sending out those calendars, what was the initial reaction?
I mean, I think that with most projects that I've done in the last 10 years, I just want to make people smile, whether it's because they're receiving something they didn't even ask for in the mail. I love sending people presents in the mail.
Well, and people love getting gifts, especially
Yeah.
in snail mail. It's like so wonderful nowadays to get a physical thing.
Yeah. But also, I was picking holidays that would particularly make people laugh or make people smile. I think that is, for me, my ultimate aim and goal as an artist is always to make someone smile.
Also, you did 10 years of these, and is it okay to say that you are not going to do them anymore? This year was your final installment.
Yeah.
Okay, and so 10 years of those, 120 holidays, are they all different? Does every calendar have... Really? And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think I may have repeated a couple from the first year only because I did such a small run of it. And that was when I had Talk Like a Pirate Day, which I really wanted to include again.
Yeah, I mean, you gave me a set, and it's just this beautiful, wonderful thing, and it does exactly that. It makes you smile. I mean, it also makes me smile because I find calendars to be so antiquated, and there's something charming about it. It's like I have like a 70s radio on my shelf that I listen to every day, and there's something wonderful about turning a knob and trying to dial in, NPR or whatever I'm listening to, and so I feel like there's a nostalgia in your work, and maybe there's a nostalgia in all sign painting because it is a throwback in a way.
Yeah.
Can you talk on that a little bit?
I mean, I think there's just generally a nostalgia in me. I really appreciate and enjoy, older things. I don't know what it is. I would love, I mean, I think that originally when I went to both Melbourne and Sydney, I fell so much more in love with Melbourne because that city had the Olympics, I think, in like the 50s. Okay. So all this money had been gone into doing up the city in the 50s. And so there was all this amazing, beautiful old signage and architecture and stuff like that. And then Sydney had just had the Olympics in 2000. So everything was much newer. And I just have always gravitated towards, things that were made in a different time. It holds so much more intrigue to me because it's so unfamiliar. Yeah. So I think that has definitely played a role in a lot of things for me. And I mean, things are even when I started studying in the Type of Cooper program, our first project that we did was a typeface revival where you had to find an old specimen from before 1920. And then you would take whatever limited number of characters you had, you were redrawing them, getting used to the programs, and then you would have to improvise what all of the other letters were. Mm-hmm. And wow. I did something that was from the Rob Roy Kelly collection of wood type. And this collection exists down in Texas at the University of Austin, or UT Austin. And I was down there visiting a friend, and I went by and I got to visit the collection, and I pulled out this one like faceted typeface, and it looked to me like a modern thing. I thought, oh, what a cool like 80s sort of vibe to it. And he says, yeah, that's our oldest one. It's from 1860. Wow. And I was like, oh.
That's so cool.
So I think that things go back so much further than we have any idea.
Mhm.
And I
Wow.
love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and so we've talked around Type at Cooper a little bit. So you started at Type at Cooper in 2010, and for people that don't know, it's a 1-year certificate program.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I think actually, can you just give us like the little quick blurb about how long you were there, how the class like kind of schedule was?
Yeah.
Structure?
So they have both an extended and a condensed program, and I did the extended program. It was 3 semesters of about 10 weeks, and it was 2 nights a week and then a number of weekend workshops.
And you did the New York one because they do it in San Francisco as well, don't they?
They do now. They just started that one a few years ago.
Okay.
And I mean, it was the most invaluable. I never know if saying invaluable means that it was extremely valuable.
That's exactly
or that
right. It was invaluable. Isn't that funny?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got so much out of this program. It was very much over my head. It's something that I would love to essentially repeat again from day one. I just learned so much about not only, the programs that you would use to develop the typeface, but just all of the little ways of looking at type. And that's really all it is. It's just about learning how to look at letters, because when you can draw, and it doesn't matter if you're drawing type or you're drawing, birds or it's just drawing. So it's just, the same way you have to learn proportions of the human figure. If you're going to be doing portraits and stuff like that, you just have to learn proportions of letters. And then you can take it and you can bend it and you can twist it and you can exaggerate things. And, there's so many places that you can go from there. But that year gave me the most intense, fundamental just basics that I needed so badly.
Yeah, and I guess that's just like by nature of the limit of time, right? With that X amount of months to really train somebody to walk out of there certified by Cooper Union, which is no small thing, right? They don't want to put their stamp on anybody that isn't going to be like a good brand representative. Will you tell us was like because again, we know you as like this hand-drawn letter artist, but I'm guessing that there was a lot of work in Illustrator while you were there.
Oh, sure. We did most of our drawing in Font Lab, which is another vector-based program. It has a slightly different grid that you work on. But I also learned while I was there that I do not want to be a typeface designer.
Yeah, talk about that. Talk a little bit. Why not?
It is so extraordinarily technical, and I think that I wanted to live in a place that was a little bit more fluid, a little bit more forgiving, and also a little bit quicker. I think creating a proper typeface is unbelievably time consuming. Some people take years to release typefaces. And it is, utterly endless. You think there are 26 letters in the alphabet. No, there are so many characters that you need to draw. It just goes on forever.
Did you guys, in that first project where you had to go back to an old one, did they have like all the diacritical marks and every other little thing that would go along with the major characters?
Some people did and some people didn't. Okay. It sort of just depended on what your capacity was.
Yeah. Okay. And could you tell right away that being a typeface designer was not going to be for you, but that you wanted to do something, like you said, a little bit more forgiving and quicker? Or did it take a little while through the program for you to come to that conclusion?
Oh no, I knew that. I knew that pretty soon in there. But I had a few friends in the program that really pushed me to stay, and I'm really, really glad that I did. It was absolutely
you had
critical.
thought about leaving?
I did.
Okay.
Because it was, so the first semester we did a revival, and then in the second semester we created our own original typeface. And we couldn't do anything that was display type. We had to do body copy, which wasn't necessarily a world that I wanted to be in. Sure. And then in our third semester, we had to do various weights and also an italicized version of it. And I think I was just concerned that it was going to be more time And if I wasn't going to be going into it as a profession, maybe it wasn't quite worth spending the time, but it absolutely was. So I'm glad that I did that. But also in between the second and the third semester, you had a month in between semesters. So I actually took that month and I went out to San Francisco for the first time, and I spent a month apprenticing at New Bohemia Signs. Right. Or I don't even know if I could call it apprenticing. I basically just said, hey, I don't live here. You guys are amazing. Can I come in and practice every day and watch you guys? And they just sort of said, sure, you seem nice.
Yeah, you told me that story, and I kind of wondered also, what gave you the guts to go in? How did you get yourself pumped up to just go in and ask?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It is so unlike me.
Okay.
It is so incredibly unlike me in every way.
Also, was it predominantly male in there?
It actually was not. And that was part of why I was most interested in their shop. It was at the time, I want to say half male and half female.
I wonder if that's by virtue of it being San Francisco, or if that's just something about New Bohemia, because I get the sense, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that I feel like the type world is very masculine and very male, and I wonder if you had a similar experience being in it deeper than I am.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I feel like most worlds feel that way.
Well, yeah, I guess that's actually a really good retort. Yeah. But it hasn't slowed you down. It hasn't given you any reason to pause. You just keep going, pushing forward, and just being yourself and not worrying about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be a girl in whatever world I'm in. So
okay. And so, I also was curious at Type at Cooper, because I know that there's this ability to do electives. Did you take any brush lettering or any kind of sort of, analog letter design electives when you were there?
Oh, absolutely. We had a lot. That first semester, there was just an unbelievable number of incredible workshops. We did, my favorite one was Ken Barber, who is very well known for his work at House Industries. And we did a whole vectorizing workshop with him that was just so eye-opening and mind-blowing.
So
and he still does. Take
your hand-drawn sketch and vectorize it?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that the first day we did sketches, and then the second day we vectorized. And I got to look up who the other guy was, so it can go somewhere on here, because I feel terrible that I don't remember. I want to say his name was Hans, but I don't know his last name. But we did an experimental one where we used literally wadded up clumps of toilet paper. We used pieces of hard-boiled eggs. We used
that sounds great.
Just really random things to make really big letters.
It must have been Hans Famira.
Okay.
I'm just looking on their site, and that's the only Hannes guy on their list of instructors, core instructors.
Yeah, I would believe that then.
That's cool. So
it was so fun.
I love that idea. I think that also that seems to translate into somehow into some of the work you've done, all the kind of objects that you've collected and worked on, where it's you actually are embracing the three-dimensionality of what you're about to put your work onto, as opposed to denying it. You embrace it. And so when that class with Hans, do you remember some of the things that you were working with? Was be it tissue or whatever you were grabbing? What was it?
My favorite I learned was chopsticks. Chopsticks are hands down, and still are, my favorite drawing tool.
So you would take a chopstick and dip it in ink or one shot or something, and then work with it?
Soak it in water for a little bit, and then you use India ink.
Oh, so it's like a disposable Chinese restaurant kind of chopstick that's really really porous. Cool.
Absolutely love it.
That's really neat. And that's when you did and I'm jumping to today, because you did that Fight the Power piece on Lowbrow, which, can you remind me who you did that for?
Oh, so on Inauguration Day, I painted a mural that said Fight the Power. And that was part of a side project that I started with my friend Ariana from Paper Jam Press. And this project is called Countertype. And we offer free high res protest art. And so we did a whole bunch of stuff for the Women's March, which was the weekend after Inauguration Day. And I screen printed a lot of our posters and handed them out in New York. And then we had a few presses in LA and in San Francisco that did runs with our artwork that handed out those posters. The Countertype stuff has been really fantastic to be a part of, and feels really good. The idea of helping more people have, just, hey, you want a poster? We can do that for you.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
only so much that I feel like I can do, but something really easy to offer is like, protest art.
Yeah. And I brought it up also. Not only was it a really powerful piece, but I think, did you use brooms or like a wheat pasting brush to put the black down?
I used a wheat pasting brush to block out the letters, because it was a set with, I only had a couple hours. I mean, number one, it was January. And I only had a couple hours before it was going to start raining. So I was like, all right, what's the fastest way for me to get these letters up? Huge. I mean, I don't know. What would you guess that wall is? Maybe like 10 feet tall and 20 feet wide?
That's about right. Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted thick letters, and I knew I didn't have a lot of time to be fussing about the consistency of the width of the strokes. So using that initially to block it in was super, super helpful. And then using it again, sort of like mimicking the look of that, this like big, heavy, like dry brush sort of feel, like using that texture to my advantage was really fun.
Yeah. And there's an amazing energy. There was an amazing energy to that piece. And, I did that American Values piece right next to it. And I was just kind of like, I just kept stopping and stepping back and looking at the work and like really loving what you did. And so to go back to Type of Cooper, chopsticks was your thing. So using non-traditional tools to make type is something that you have embraced and you're into. Do you continue to experiment like on your own with interesting tools?
All the time. I mean, all the time. I realized pretty early on in like, I guess probably around the 2008, 2009 time, that I was using pencils to try and make them look like other tools.
Right.
And so I realized I just had to nut up and learn how to use other tools.
Yeah. Which probably just opens up a lot of capacity for you, I would think, as a designer, because it puts you out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
You're not holding one shot with a beautiful sign painting brush. You're holding, like you said, a soaking wet chopstick with India ink, which, it's probably always kind of. I think that I'm imagining it would create a new sense of freedom, because you're like, well, this could look like crap because of what it is, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I like these results. I actually I'm looking at chopsticks and India ink right now, and I want to try this. I want to go back just for a second to New Bohemia, because that's out in San Francisco. It's an old sign shop. And can you just talk about some of the fundamentals that you took away from that experience, and also how long were you there?
So I was there for the month of May, and then I went back out again for a month in October after I had finished the Type of Cooper program. And then by then they had, actually hired other apprentices that came in that could turn around and be, full-time employees for them one day. So that was pretty much just a couple months in 2011 that I got to spend there. But I watched a lot of, I did a lot of like really creepy hovering and just watching and asking questions. And they were so happy to share, why they made the choices that they did. And again, you tend to look at, it's all about looking. So I would look at how they held the brush, and I would look at where they started the stroke. And there were so many, and then I practiced every day while I was there. I would do, usually 3 hours of practice, and then I do an hour of like, trying to learn as much with being not in the way too much as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I had to go home and do actual work.
Yeah. And did you have like your own little corner inside New Bohemia, or would you just, like you said, hover and just kind of move around and find an empty space?
Yeah, it was just whatever space I could fit in.
But you learned a ton. And then you come back to New York, you finish up type at Cooper. Did you guys have like a final project there?
We did. We had a show at the TDC, which is the Type Directors Club.
And is that happening every year? Is that something we can go to Type at Cooper's website and see when they're going to have their final show every year?
For sure.
Great.
For sure.
Great.
And I would also strongly recommend everyone consider joining the Type Directors Club. It's a couple $100. I think it's maybe $200 membership for the year, and you get this gorgeous annual, and you get to attend all of their lectures. As far as I know, you get to attend most of their lectures, if not all of their lectures, for free. And it's just, they have a library. They're an incredible resource.
That's awesome. I had also mentioned B&A earlier, your agency, which you actually brought to my attention that they now have like a mural division where they do groups like, Buff Monsters in there, and Tristan Eaton and Askew and 123 Clan and others, Felipe Pantone. Is it also a secret that you hope to maybe expand out of the illustration department there and get more into the murals?
I mean, it's not a secret to them. Okay. I don't know who it would be a secret to.
Okay, good. So they know that you actually want to do that.
Yeah, there's now, we've broken up my portfolio on their site. So there's not just a single lettering portfolio. I now have 3 portfolios on there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Like digital lettering, hand lettering, and murals. But I'm not yet listed on their mural section.
Okay. Awesome. But maybe that's going to happen because you do want to be painting more walls, and maybe splitting some of your time from working on paper or working on a screen and continuing to go big. Like you.
Yeah, no, I've been really lucky in that I've gotten to paint quite a number of walls in the last, 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that just for a second, and it might be something that we kind of wrap up on because, again, like you've had this thing where you have like rubbed elbows with Futura and you just like ended up knowing Bisco and Bishop and other guys, and then you have this great wall with Dissatisfied just down the street from me here in Bushwick. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the partnership between Dirty Bandits, or maybe just specifically you, and certain graffiti artists and going big on walls with spray paint?
Yeah. So I have used spray paint on very few of my walls. I've been going big with brushes. But I have been really, really lucky to collaborate with a number of people who, number one, are open to using brush on walls, which has been great. But Never Satisfied was the first person I painted with, and I helped him on a few walls, both in San Francisco and in New York. And in Australia, actually, we overlapped in Melbourne a couple of years ago.
Cool.
And while I was also down in Australia, I got to paint a wall with my roommate there, who does a lot of flash stuff. And she's now a tattoo artist named Marion Machismo. And we painted a very big, very girly pink, damn, it feels good to be a gangsta wall.
Nice. Awesome.
That was super fun. To be painting with someone else is just a dream. In San Francisco, I painted a number of walls with Amanda Lynn and got to travel down to New Zealand with her last year to paint at Seawalls, which was really great. While I was at Seawalls, I met Vexta, and she and I painted a few things in New York last summer. It's just, to be able to paint a wall with someone else, it's being social, it's being creative, and it's being outside. I mean, it's just, there's nothing better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what about how do you find navigating through the sort of graffiti community. And granted, like if you're painting a wall with someone like Vexta or whatever, like you're sort of instantly given access. Like people, I think, will just be like, oh well, this can't be some scrub, she's painting with Vexta. But can you give a couple of ideas or kind of thoughts on what it is to mingle with graffiti people?
I mean, it's not that different from anything I've done before, in that you show up on time, you are enthusiastic, you give a shit about them, what they're doing,
Right.
what they want to accomplish. I really feel like it's the same training that I've gotten as a graphic designer has helped me in terms of like being able to collaborate successfully with people on walls.
Yeah.
You show up, you work hard. That it's not that's sort of like, I don't know, but how I've gotten anywhere in life.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, that's great to hear, and it makes sense. I just wanted to definitely hear it from you. You had also mentioned about the sort of protest work that you did with
Ariana.
Yeah, and what was the name of the group?
Paper Jam Press.
Thank you. And so with Paper Jam Press, are you guys familiar with the oh gosh, it's April 7th. It's coming up right now. Yes, it is called International Wheat Pasting Day. But basically, every April 7th, all of these all of these files are open source, put on the internet, and you can go and print out the same posters wherever you are in the world, and then go out and paste them up. And so I think one of the very first years was when they wrote the whole like "Don't Ask Me to Smile" thing. And hold on, I'm pulling up this link now. Oh, I deleted it. But yeah, and so anyway, it's very similar to what you were doing. It's like, here's some protest art. It's available for you online. Go print it and do what you want with it. In this case, they're going to be putting up posters all over the world about, basically protecting women. And it just seems like very well aligned with some of the work that you've been doing. I'll be sure to send you the link. It's really interesting. Great. And it's about to happen.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's important, and I think it aligns with so much of what you do. I was just kind of digging deeper into that Way This project that you did at Grand Central.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many different projects that you've done, and I am also a huge fan of puns, and I think it's actually we need to laugh. And the Way This project. Can you just talk for a second about the hand painted scales and how the project went down at Grand Central for those that don't know?
Yeah. So ultimately the client was Lean Cuisine. And this was, much to my total surprise, it was not branded as Lean Cuisine at all.
Which probably makes sense, because I bet you they would have gotten a whole lot of pushback in a lot of ways.
It was such a brilliant move. It was such a brilliant move on their part. They had put out a video about a year before. And in the video, they brought women into this room where there was a scale there, and they said, "Do you want to get on the scale?" And they said, "No, thanks."
Sure.
And they said, "Well, what do you want to be weighed by?" So the whole concept behind it was women shouldn't be weighed by the number it says on a scale. They should be weighed by their greatest accomplishments. So you had these people who like put their kids on the scale, that put their textbooks on the scale because they went back to school at age 40 and got a degree. You had one woman puts her wedding ring on the scale while another woman puts her divorce papers on the scale.
Right.
One person put her sister on the scale because she had, I think this is the woman who had like given one of her kidneys. And the whole thing was so unbelievably emotional and moving that they started a campaign with the hashtag Weigh This. And so women everywhere were tweeting what they wanted to be weighed by.
And so that's how you got like the quote plus the name on every scale. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was given like 250 quotes to paint on bathroom scales that were then all hung up on this giant wall that was probably about 50 feet long and 12 feet high. maybe it was even bigger, that was in Grand Central for two days. And to be in a space where normally you aren't interacting with people, you have your head down,
Right.
you're in a hurry, you don't care about everyone else that's around you, and never are you thinking, I wonder what struggles you faced in your life. I wonder what you've had to overcome. And yet here are all of these personal notes from all of these women being like, this is what I did. It was such an unbelievably moving project to be a part of.
Wow, I bet. And, I so many of them really resonated with me. There's this one, Jennifer said that she wants to be weighed by her strong, intelligent daughters, which I totally identify with. Raising a daughter in this society now is like, there's a lot of pressure, and it's,
yeah.
And I feel a responsibility with it. And so anyway, I love that project for so many reasons. And I was curious, I couldn't find out where the scales went after the project.
So they actually went to, this is crazy. I don't actually know who owns Lean Cuisine. Whoever owns Lean Cuisine has those scales. Okay.
So you came in, you did the work, and then they're gone, and you weren't told where they go or what they do with them?
As far as I know, they were hanging them up in whatever the company was. I think it was in Tennessee.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So Nestle owns Lean Cuisine. And so as far as I know, the bulk of them were going to Nestle's headquarters. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It just makes me want to write to Nestle and say, please auction all of those and donate all of that money to some sort of a charity now. I'm happy that you and your employees get to look at them, do more with them. Annica, this has been a great talk. It's been really exciting to hear just a lot of your backstory and a lot of your thoughts. I'm curious if you can tell us, read the tea leaves. What's in the future for Dirty Bandits? What's coming up?
Ooh, I've never been very good at like a, 5-year plan or even a 1-year plan. So, I'm mostly just open to whatever's coming up.
Okay. Is there a project that you're working on that you can pitch?
Project I'm working on right now is my new dog, Barnaby, who needs a lot of training and a lot of walking. Nice. And that's predominantly what I'm focusing on right now.
Oh, but what I have to mention is that you just did that Red Sox can for Budweiser, and then there's this amazing photo of you standing next to your 10-foot tall version of it. Is that in front of Fenway right now?
Yeah, it was at South Station in Boston the weekend before. So cool. Today it should be at Fenway, and I am now taking my dad that's why I'm up in Boston. I'm taking my dad to opening day today.
Amazing. Listen, that's so cool. Tell people that aren't familiar with you where we can find your work, like your website, your Instagram, or any other channels that you want to promote.
Yeah. So my website is dirtybandits.com. And my Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, they're all just Dirty Bandits.
You got all those handles, no underscores, no weird dots or anything. It's all Dirty Bandits, one word.
All of it.
That's super fortunate. You're lucky. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I know we went over, but it was really, really great to get you on. And also, I'm so happy to get a lettering artist, a woman. I call you friend, and I will continue to do that. And so I'm just super grateful to have had you on. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Adam. This has been great. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My Life in Letters. We record live every week in Bushwick, Brooklyn, USA. Our producer is Christopher Piccioni. Our social media manager is Jonathan Drexler. Our intern is Tamika Slesher. And my name is Adam Fujita. If you've got something to say, holler at us at our email, which is mylifeinletterspodcast@gmail.com. Check our new Instagram page at mylifeinletterspodcast. And check out our YouTube page where you can click the link in our description to get 10% off your next order at sprayplanet.com. Have a great day, everybody.
The language of letters.